In Ukraine, the Russian mercenary group fighting in Bakhmut might not be leaving the battle after all. Last week, the head of the group said his fighters were dying because ammunition supplies from Moscow were drying up, and he would be pulling his remaining forces from what has been one of the bloodiest battles in the war. CNN's Sam Kiley has more.
In the ongoing macabre soap opera that is the Russian saga in the battle for Bakhmut, the latest part of this drama is that Prigozhin, the leader of the Wagner private military company, as he likes to call himself, the mercenary organization, has gone back on his threat to withdraw his troops from the city on May the 10th and hand over to Chechens under the command of Kadyrov. And that is because he is saying he is now being promised the ammunition that up until now he was claiming that the Russian Ministry of Defense had been denying him. Now, all of this is part of a mysterious ongoing spat that he has with the Ministry of Defense inside Russia. He's frequently complaining and very publicly critical of the leadership of the Russian generals. He's recently recruited former Russian generals. But I think that really this is something of a distraction because as far as the Ukrainians are concerned, they've been delighted if the Wagner group had left and had to be replaced, because it would have left a period of vulnerability in that very bloody fight for a town that the Ukrainians say they're happy to kill Russians in, but as far as they're concerned, doesn't really have any strategic interest or advantage, unlike their preparations for what they say is a planned summer offensive. All eyes are on the Ukrainians to see where and how this offensive may begin. There's a lot of speculation that it might get underway in the south, perhaps with the attempt at liberating the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant there. There have been reports from the Russian side, or the Russian-held areas of Ukraine, of mass evacuations, of looted goods, of civilians, and indeed of some military elements, particularly from the city of Melitopol, appearing on social media and being claimed by elements within the Ukrainian administration. Now, that would be a sign that the Russians are expecting something.
All right, Sam Kiley, thank you so much. Let's bring in now Bill Browder. He is the CEO of Hermitage Capital Management, and he's also the author of 2 books, Red Notice and more recently Freezing Order. They are based on his experiences in Russia and becoming a target of Vladimir Putin himself. Bill, good to see you. So what do you think is happening here between Vladimir Putin and the head of this mercenary group?
Well, I don't think anything is happening between Putin and the head of the mercenary group. Putin has always managed the people under him with these types of conflicts. They're always sort of going at it with each other. So the mercenary group head, Prigozhin, is fighting with the Minister of Defense and various other officials there. But Putin is sort of the puppet master who kind of has them weaken each other, strengthen each other, and all sorts of other things. The most important thing you need to understand here is that whoever is, I mean, we shouldn't believe a word these people are saying, but the one thing we can say for sure is that there is a problem inside of the Russians' effective military offensive. It's not working out. They're losing thousands, tens of thousands of soldiers, and this is before the Ukrainians have really gotten to work with their counteroffensive.
Mm-hmm. When you said you shouldn't believe a word, that was going to be my next question, which is, should we believe the head of the Wagner group that it was so desperate that they were willing to pull out? Might that be sort of a PR stunt, just a performance, and Vladimir Putin possibly on board with it?
I mean, who knows? I mean, these people play so many, games and counter games and tricks and so on and so forth that, it's really almost not worth analyzing what they're saying. I know for sure that Prigozhin has lied on many occasions, and so there's no reason to believe that he's not lying now. Mm-hmm. This is war. For them to actually telegraph their real intentions is even less likely. But the most important thing we need to understand is that there is some type of problem. If they're fighting with each other in the open, there is some type of problem inside the Russian military, which is both obvious from their fighting, but also obvious from the number of dead bodies that are turning up on the Russian side and the number of tanks that are being destroyed and so on and so forth.
And then there's the issue of that drone attack on the Kremlin last week. I mean, the Kremlin says the U.S., Ukraine masterminded that. Then there's also, a feeling that it could be some anti-Kremlin, anti-Putin group that might be behind it. And this is what the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee said about the incident on CNN earlier today.
I believe that they're an attempt to distract everyone in Russia from the fact that Vladimir Putin is losing horribly in Ukraine, and he needs to withdraw. He needs to allow Ukraine to restore their territorial borders and the integrity of their country.
All right. So again, a possible stunt, a diversion?
Well, yes, definitely. Look at this. The Kremlin is the most well-defended place in the whole planet. For the idea that two drones could somehow just get in there and explode over the Kremlin is laughable. This is clearly some type of orchestrated stunt in order to create a narrative. In my opinion, the narrative is more about escalating the war and giving the Russian people something to rally around. And the idea is that the Ukrainians, with the Americans backing, have tried to kill Putin. We won't let them, but that justifies us escalating further and perhaps even drafting more people, drafting more conscripts, which is one of the things that the Russians need to do very desperately. And so I don't believe for a second that this was done by the Ukrainians or by Russian partisans or by the Americans. This was done by Putin as a way of creating a domestic narrative.
All right, Bill Browder, we'll leave it there for now. Thanks so much.
Thank you.